Hi, welcome back to side 2 after these strains of Matt Bianco. We've got to start off, however, with an apology, and we're very sorry to say that our stall in Edmonton Market had to be cancelled, owing to the fact that the majority of our helpers were on holiday or at work on those days. Many apologies to any of you who came along to the market hoping to see us. However, there's something nice to look forward to, our New Year party. It will take place on Saturday, January 10th at Millfield House, Silver Street, Edmonton, in the evening. We'll be giving you more details nearer the time, but this is an early warning, so you can save up your pennies to the amount of £2 for the evening, which will include light refreshments. There will also be a bar and possibly a cabaret if we speak nicely to a certain person. I wonder who that could be. Over to Diane now for the next item.
Well, there won't be any weeping when the tree fellers moved in to chop a willow tree down. The thirsty tree has been draining the picture postcard pond at Middleton House, Bulls Cross, Enfield, and causing gardeners quite a headache. The Lee Valley Regional Park Authority have been improving the garden at Middleton Park for several years in an effort to return it to its former glory. But the continually leaking pond puzzled workers for some time. Last year, we totally restored the pond, the spokesman Chris Stringer said. We excavated the silts, cleaned it up, and lined the pond with puddle mud to stop it from leaking. But it still leaked, he said. It was only when workers drained the pond themselves and the willow on the pond's bank began to suffer that they got to the root of the problem. We can't be sure that it is all attributable to the willow, but it seems pretty likely. Certainly it did suffer when we emptied the pond. Mr. Stringer said the pond had a history of leaking. He added that the dragon claw willow appeared to have been planted below the pond's waterline sometime in the 1940s. But the loss of the willow won't infringe on the estate's restoration to the splendour once created by the famous Bowles horticulturist. It would appear that it wasn't part of the original Bowles garden anyway. If it was in his garden, it was in the later years, Mr. Stringer said. Once the tree is removed, the workers can complete the pond, which will be stocked with goldfish. The willow was protected by a tree preservation order, but Enfield Council's planning subcommittee agreed to lift the order. The programme of restoration at Middleton House will continue over the next 3 years.
The next story caught my eye, living as I do in Winchmore Hill. As you probably know, Winchmore Hill in the Elizabethan times formed part of the vast Enfield Chase and was alive with deer. It is now, of course, a built-up suburb of London. But the deer seem to still be there, because 5 firemen and a fire engine, a vet and an RSPC hospital van were called to rescue a stranded deer last week. The 2-year-old wild muntjac deer wandered into Annette and Doug Elliott's garden in Winchmore Hill, but got stuck when it got through, or tried to get through, the wrought iron gate into a neighbour's garden. Firemen from Southgate had to prise the iron bars apart to release her. The deer, that is, not the next-door neighbour. And vet Ian Lopatkin had to sedate the bewildered animal before it was taken to the RSPCA hospital in Holloway. It was released into the wild after 48 hours rest and recuperation. Mrs. Elliott, a speech and drama teacher of Vickersmore Lane, said, "Goodness knows where it came from."
Tracy Stannard came into the world 6 weeks early, weighing just 4 pounds 4 ounces when she was born. But that didn't stop her running 10 kilometres for charity last week. Tracy of Dermont Road, Palmer's Green, is now a super fit 22-year-old and raised £300 for Baby Life Support Systems, BLISS for short, a charity which buys equipment for premature babies, when she joined the Woman's Own Nikki Fun Run in Hyde Park. Tracy was cheered on by her 3-year-old twin cousins, Rachel and Natalie Kennedy, who were also born with a touch of the tinies. Natalie tipped the scales at just 2 pounds 4 ounces and spent 5 weeks in an incubator at Chase Farm Hospital. Her sister Rachel spent 2 days in an incubator, weighing a more substantial 4 pounds 8 ounces. Their mother, Pam Kennedy, who is the founder member of the Enfield branch of BLISS, said, "Tracy did marvellously. She raised a lot of money and showed people that premature babies grow up into strong, fit adults, just like my twins are."
A monkey on the loose in the wilds of Edmonton drove the RSPCA and the policeman bananas last week. For the elusive rogue monkey escaped the clutches of its would-be captors, and when the cheeky chappie was finally caught, it sank its teeth into the arm of a nursing home assistant. The alarm first went out at 3 p.m. on Wednesday when staff at St Joseph's Nursing Home in Church Street, Lower Edmonton, spotted the rascal. They alerted a somewhat sceptical police, who in turn called in the RSPCA. The RSPCA inspector attempted to corner the animal, but it turned nasty and bolted. Police in the area were informed to keep an eye out for the animal, and a description was issued. He was described as 2 foot tall, covered in fur, and not very happy. But on a serious note, they warned their officers not to approach the monkey, as it could give a bad bite. Later that evening, the monkey returned to the nursing home car park. The staff managed to capture the monkey themselves, but in the process, Gloria Thomas was bitten and was taken for a tetanus injection at North Middlesex Hospital as a precaution. But before the RSPCA could arrive, a woman with her 4 children in tow called at the nursing home, claimed the monkey and walked away. Now the search is on to find this woman. It is believed that the monkey escaped from her home early in the day, but apart from that, little is known about her. The RSPCA will be trying to trace her to ensure that the animal has a covering licence. If not, she could be prosecuted by Enfield Council under the Dangerous Animals Act.
Mm-hmm. Now, here we go, calling all nitwits. Come rain, snow or sleet, it isn't going to be a winter of discontent for Karen Brodie, for the nimble-fingered knitter has this amazing 275-foot scarf to keep her warm. Karen, a secretary at Wurzel, Singleton and Clarkham in Enfield Town, began knitting the scarf about 2 years ago, and it has kept growing and growing. She said, I knit whenever I can. I get so bored sitting in front of the telly, so I sit and knit and knit and knit. I have to keep my fingers moving. Karen, who lives in Oakley Crescent, Whetstone, is now hoping to knit herself into the Guinness Book of Records, but she could have a long way to go yet. Although the book doesn't contain a record for a long scarf, it does have one for a crochet chain, and that's more than 35 miles long.
Now for some church news. St James's Church in Enfield Highway are to have a new curate. He is the Reverend David Horton, and he has arrived in the area with his wife Anne and 3 young children. 36-year-old Mr Horton was previously a chartered accountant, and his last job before joining the ministry was as chief auditor to the City of Durham Council. St Thomas's Church, Oakwood, are mourning the death of their vicar, the Reverend John Potham, who died in St Mary's Hospital, Paddington, last week. He was 61. He had been ill for some while, suffering from a heart condition. And in another part of the borough, Edmonton, Father Norman Kersey, the parish priest of St Edmund's Roman Catholic Church, Hertford Road, is retiring. He has been in Edmonton for 14 years and is well known in the district, spending most of his time visiting his parishioners on his bicycle. He had a farewell celebratory mass, which was celebrated by Cardinal Basil Hume. He is going on a holiday to New Zealand with his brother, and on his return he will be acting as a chaplain to an old people's home in Stoke Newington. The new parish priest of St Edmund's is the Father Brian Ward, who was, at one time, at the beginning of his ministry, a curate at St Edmund's.
Plans for a new restaurant in Southgate have led to traders' fears that they may be squeezed out of business. There are already 21 restaurants, cafes and takeaway shops around Southgate Circus, and it's feared that the latest plan for a new outlet in Ashfield Parade could prove one too many. Helen Anastasi of the Ashfield Cafe believes the council should act now to prevent the new restaurant overcrowding the food market and damaging the trade of more established firms. She's starting a petition of fellow traders and customers, pressing the council to put a stop to new food businesses moving in on the circus patch. But Deputy Borough Planning Officer Martin Jewell said there was no chance of the new plan being turned down on the grounds of too much competition. Too much competition is not a satisfactory planning reason for a refusal. The restaurant would have to be to the detriment of the facilities in Southgate or cause too much noise, disturbance, traffic or smell, he said. He advised all those unhappy about a new restaurant to contact the council, outlining their objections.
Thanks, Anne. Now some notes for your diary and what's on for the coming week. On Sunday, October the 5th, there's a flower festival at St Peter's Church, Vera Avenue, Grange Park. That's at 11 a.m. to 5. It's free there. Social and sing-along dancing at Holly's Hall, Nursery Road, Southgate. That's from 7:30 to 10:30. Admission is £1. And we move on to October the 6th on Monday. There's the Over 60s Evergreen Club, and they meet at the Red Cross Centre, 259 Green Lanes, Palmer's Green, at 2:45 till 4:15. And also there's the Over 60s Club, meeting at the Selby Hall, Lancaster Road, Enfield, at 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. Various activities and new members are welcome, and you can get details on 6097. And at the Intimate Theatre on October the 8th to the 11th at 7:30, Saturdays matinees at 3 p.m, the St Monica Players present Present Laughter, a light comedy by Noel Coward. And on October the 14th to the 18th at 7:30, the Risley Operatic Group present Passion Flower, a famous Jerry Herman musical. October the 20th to the 25th at 7:45, Saturdays matinees at 3 p.m. There's Latin American, and it's called Tango and Friends, a spectacular evening, we're told, of music, song and dance from Latin America. Also, on October the 8th, there's a German Circle at Millfield House, Hill Street, Edmonton, at between 2 and 3, mixed ability group. Beginners are welcome, 803-1394. And the Southgate Recorded Music Society at Southgate Town Hall, Green Lanes, Palmer's Green, at 7:45. Wales Entertains, an audio-visual recital presented by Neville Jones. Details on 550-8542.
Right, a little bit of other news here. It says nearly 400 council homes are due to have double glazing installed by the end of next summer. A bit late for this winter, but still. Most of the houses were built between the walls, and though they are generally in good condition, the timber windows are in a poor state. The roads affected are areas around Brimsdown Avenue, right through 3rd Avenue and Landseer Road, parts of Ponders End High Street and Bush Hill Park. Various other roads, I should imagine you can get information from the council.
A Keep Warm campaign is to be run this year. Almost £750,000 and 173 workers will be concentrated on preventing elderly people dying from cold this winter. A comprehensive programme of action and information will be presented to every one of the 37,000 households in the borough which contains elderly people. The Manpower Services Commission will be paying both for workers and materials needed for the scheme. Last year, 4 people died in Enfield from hypothermia, and many more received assistance from social services to deal with the cold winter. This hypothermia campaign will be based on informing people how to safeguard against risks from cold. Visits to elderly residents will be starting next month, and insulation teams should be working by November. A word of warning, however: if someone calls at your house, make sure that they have the correct credentials before you allow them to be admitted.
A man who's devoted his life to the Boys' Brigade has celebrated his 60th year in the movement. Len Staines, a lieutenant in the 16th Enfield, was presented with a plaque and a Bible by grateful parents and boys during the company's annual awards evening. And afterwards, the veteran member described how he had enjoyed every minute of his time with the brigade. Len first became a member in 1926, when he joined the 3rd Enfield at Christchurch in Chase Side, Enfield. At that time, the movement was known as the Boy Reserves. At the age of 20, Len became an officer when he helped to form a new company at Suffolk School in Brick Lane, Enfield. But when the war started, the company was closed, and Len joined up with the Royal Signals, serving in Iceland, Sicily and Italy. However, he continued to help the brigade when he returned to England, and after the war worked with a number of companies, until he joined the 16th Enfield in 1960. Nowadays, he spends several nights a week with the company, who are based at St. John's Methodist Church in Hughes Avenue, Enfield. He helps with Bible classes, band practice, parade evenings, and junior section meetings.
Everyone connected with the town show must have been delighted with the beautiful weather we had over that weekend, especially the horticultural societies, from whom it must be one of the major events of the year. One of the oldest of these organisations must be the Forty Hill Mutual Improvement and Horticultural Society, which was formed in 1910 with Mr. E.A. Bowles as president. The first show was held in August 1911 with cut flowers, plants, fruit, vegetables, livestock and best homemade loaf. The venue for the show was Middleton House Gardens, and it was held in the cowshed. One can imagine the overnight activity in clearing and cleaning out the cowshed to make it a fit venue for the show. Outside, a long table was placed to accommodate the long line of children's jam jars filled with wild flowers. The children were also encouraged to capture queen wasps and white butterflies for a reward of 1 penny each. The total amount of prize money was £4 2 shillings. In 1984, the Society published a small book in which past and present members recorded their memories of the organisation. Miss Eva Radford, who lives in the Forty Hill area, remembered those early days, and she said, "In thinking of the Forty Hill Horticultural Society, I cannot remember the exact year my father was appointed as secretary. However, when he retired, Mr. Augustus Bowles presented him with an umbrella with the date, etc., inscribed on a silver band around it. He was so proud of his umbrella that it went everywhere with him every weekend, whether the sun was shining or the rain was coming. Indeed, I have a photograph of him when he was sitting in Middleton Gardens at a summer fete, surrounded by the old members of the church. It was a glorious day, but Father is there with his umbrella. We have never parted with it, and my nephew still prizes it because it bears his grandfather's name. Father used to collect the £1 notes given by the vice presidents before the annual show. They were Mr. Jessup, who lived in Forty Hill House, Dr. Carter at the house now called Longbourn, also Mr. Rashley at Roselands, and 2 others also. They used to go round judging the gardens and allotments with Mr. Swatton, the head gardener of Middleton House, Mr. Spurling, the head gardener of Roselands, Mr. Martin from Capel House, and Mr. Pullen, who was at the Theobalds when Lady Muir was there. It was such a busy time getting everything ready, and such a large show really for the size of Forty Hill. One of the highlights that I remember were the vegetable collection, and a prize of a leg of mutton given by Percy Ansell, the butcher, whose shop was where the do-it-yourself shop now is just past Clay Hill. The vegetables were very good, and Mr. Pullen was a very good judge, and no one was allowed into the cart shed, as it was then, whilst the judging was going on. When I was about 12, I started collecting queen wasps, and my main place was Forty Hill House, where Miss Jessup lived. There was a large, bright, shiny-leafed ivy, which the wasps settled on, and when I arrived home from school about 5 o'clock, the sun and wasps would be on the ivy. The large gates were never open, and I had to knock to be let in. When Mr. Jessup arrived on horseback from Waltham Abbey, where he worked, he used to start whistling when he got to the top of Goat Lane, so that Mr. Payne, his coachman, would hear him and open the gate ready for him to enter. I would go through the cobbled yard, which is now gone, and I was given a butterfly net to catch the wasps. I would kill them with a little stone on their heads and put them into matchboxes, which we collected beforehand, and my brother took the wasps and pinned them out on a sheet of paper for me before the show. I had a record number one year, 409, and I think the money I received was 6p a dozen. It wasn't very much money really, but I had to do it, being the daughter of the secretary. If Miss Jessup saw any wasps during the day, she would catch and save them for me. The wasp collection was stopped when Mr. Bowles started the wild flowers section, as I think some of the children didn't fancy killing wasps, but I never remember being stung. And that concludes Miss Radford's stinging account of life at Forty Hill in the old days. At least the wasp must be happier in the 1980s. Now back to the news with Diane.
Starry-eyed pupils and parents watched as eminent astronomer Heather Cooper laid the foundation stone of a new building at Palmer's Green High School. Heather, who has risen to fame as a writer, broadcaster and president of the British Astronomical Association, told Friday's gathering how exciting science can be as a career. This was particularly apt as the new building will eventually provide the school in Hoppers Road with custom-built laboratories. The building is part of a £305,000 development taking place at Palmer's Green High to meet the demands of a more scientifically orientated society. In addition to the 3-storey extension, there will be alterations to the north end of the school to provide an art studio, computer room, medical room and cloakrooms. The project is expected to be finished by April next year. However, although the school are paying £205,000 towards the work, they are appealing to parents and friends to make donations towards the remainder. More than 50 people who have already made contributions were invited to last week's ceremony. Also, there were 2 girls from each form, head teacher Anne Woodings, and teachers.
Bernie Grant has upset local MP Michael Portillo. The controversial leader of Haringey Council caused the upset when he visited Southgate last Friday. Bernie Grant, who is best known for criticising the police following last year's Tottenham riots, was one of the guests at a celebration of the Hindi language which took place at Southgate Technical College. But his presence there appalled Southgate's MP Michael Portillo, who shared the stage with Mr Grant. Mr Portillo said afterwards, "It was ironic that he should attend a celebration whose theme was unity and harmony, when in every way his comments after the riot did so much to make things worse. I also deplore the fact that he chose the occasion of the Hindi celebration to make a party political speech, which was absolutely inappropriate in the circumstances. His visit to Southgate will have given great offence to many of my constituents. Vijay Ratan, who helped organise the celebration, said it was a non-political event and nobody had any complaints." A spokesman for Haringey Council said, "Mr Grant was attending a Labour Party conference and couldn't comment."
About 300 people took part in a 3-legged human wheelbarrow race at Enfield's Town Park on Sunday to raise funds to send handicapped youngsters on a pilgrimage to the Roman Catholic shrine at Lourdes next Easter. The trip is being organised by the North London branch of the Handicapped Children's Pilgrimage Trust, which takes 2,000 children to Lourdes every year. The organisers hope Sunday's event will raise £7,000 for the week-long trip, which will give a well-deserved break for families who constantly care for handicapped children.
Settling into their new home at St Paul's Community Centre are the members of the Enfield Counselling Service. The group has been given a purpose-built suite of rooms at the centre in Church Street, Enfield, and are now hoping to expand their service. This means that as well as their usual counselling sessions for groups and individuals, they will be running training courses for counsellors and short courses on stress and self-awareness for the public. If you have a problem you would like to discuss with the service, or if you want to know more about their work, contact them on 01 367 2333.
Councillors are to pay a tribute to a former colleague by naming a sheltered housing scheme after him. Len Warren House will be the name of the scheme at Town Road and Plevna Road, Lower Edmonton. The late Mr Warren was elected as a member of Edmonton Council in 1958 and served as a councillor until his death in 1983. He was leader of the Labour group from 1968 to 1982 and was particularly interested in housing and education.
Palmer's Green Mark Anderson has gone back to college without the title he was so keenly seeking on Saturday. Mark, 18, from Elmsdale Road, was a finalist in the national Mr Supercool competition held at a London hotel. Braving the glare of the television lights and the close and critical scrutiny of a capacity audience, Mark paraded before the judges along with 29 other hopefuls. Each was there to convince the crowd he was the man most in possession of the attributes the judges were looking for. These were good looks, confidence, a likeable personality, and a good physique to boot. Although unplaced in the finals, Mark, a business studies student and part-time model, is still the apple of his mother's eye.
After a slow start, Enfield Council's ban on pavement parking is beginning to take effect. A report from the Chief Executive and Town Clerk and Borough Engineer and Surveyor says that in 1985, the first year of the pavement parking ban, 3,800 warnings were issued against illegal parkers and 30 offenders were successfully prosecuted.
A concert performed by Nicholas Small and Michael Smith will be held at St Andrew's Parish Church, Enfield Town, on Tuesday, October 7 at 8 p.m. For more details, contact Mr. Smith 01 363 0770.
A little bit more church news. Dwindling congregation numbers are not a feature of one Enfield church. In fact, the situation is quite the reverse. Services at Enfield Evangelical Free Church in Cecil Road are proving so popular, an extra Sunday session is now to be held. Starting this Sunday, the 9:30 a.m. family worship will be followed by an 11:15 a.m. service.
Two stories which really link up. Last Friday, a strike hit the buses in London, but didn't affect the local area, as the Palmer's Green and Potter's Bar bus garages ignored the strike call. And as if to sort of get over this problem, the assistant manager at an Edmonton building society has got his own way of beating strikes and the commuter traffic. Twice a week, as the clock approaches 5 p.m, he swaps his city shoes for trainers, slips on a pair of shorts and jogs all the way home to Potter's Bar.
Receipts from this year's bumper grand fete at St Edmund's Roman Catholic School, Hertford Road, Lower Edmonton, are the best ever. Brilliant sunshine last Saturday helped draw the crowds and rake in a profit of £1,300 for school funds.
Deputy Director of Social Services at Enfield Borough Council, Jeff Prosser, will be leaving his post next month after 2 years in the area. He will become Unit General Manager of Priority and Community Services with Tower Hamlets Area Health Authority.
And we're back to a little bit of local crime, younger and younger these days. A 13-year-old schoolboy was forced to hand over his bicycle when 3 slightly older boys threatened him with a knife and punched him. The 13-year-old was stopped as he was cycling home along Broomfield Avenue, Ponders End, on Saturday when 3 boys asked for a ride on his bike. When he refused, one of them drew a knife and threatened to use it on him, and then another of the boys punched him, and he was forced to hand his bicycle over to them.
And finally, high prices in the area are hampering recruitment, says Enfield Borough Council. The problem is that when workers applying for jobs see the price of the houses in the area, they are put off. Councillor Alan Amos, the council's deputy leader, stated this last week. Sometimes the council has to advertise jobs several times before they are filled. Councillor Amos said the problem is affecting all council services, including teaching, and this applies to all the outer London boroughs. But now Enfield Council officers are drawing up a report which will investigate the problem and suggest a solution. It is likely to be considered by the Council later this year.
Thank you very much, John. That brings us to the end of this edition. It gives us pleasure to say see you next week. Listen out now. Good night from
Diane,
John,
Anne,
and me, Alf. Say good night, Tony.
Good night.
Good night.